What it do, Sober Soldier, salute. This is Stick from Dead Prayers with my partner, M1. And you are in tune to gotkushTV.
There was empires in Africa called Kush, Timbuktu, where every race came to get booked. My success to you, even if you wish me the opposite. Sooner or later, we'll all see who the prophet is.
Achomi na Gbontwi Anyetei Quao, Nimbiane Nyenko gotkushTV, Nyeyiradon. My name is Gbontwi Anyetei Quao, and right now you're watching gotkushTV. Thank you.
Every year in the month of May, we chant liberation. We gather every year in the month of May, cause we are one black nation. And we celebrate all our victory and prepare for each new fight. We vanquish you all down pressure, whether black, yellow, brown or white. Cause black struggle international in this year time, and we want liberation now. After we struggle, I want in North America, me say we want liberation now. After we struggle, I want in the Caribbean, me say we want liberation now. After we struggle, I want in Canada, me say we want liberation now. After we struggle, I want in South America, me say we want liberation now. After we struggle, I want in Europe, me say we want liberation. No, happy we struggle, I want in a Britain, man, me say we want liberation. No, happy we struggle, I want in a Asia, me say we want liberation. No, happy we struggle, I want in a Australia, me say we want liberation. No, and so we trot down the road and it a cause sensation behind the colors of the new black nation. I step into the valleys in the shadow of the wicked, just a chant liberation. Tell it to the nation. What we want to see is Africa strong and free. We sing it in a reggae song all the time. Say what is to be has got to be. Africa shall be free. Who are we? Africans. What do we want? Freedom. And we say, how do we get it? Fight. We must fight to defend the truth and defend the right. It's Africa Liberation Day. The true black spirit is here to stay. Before this power, no one life is here. Freedom come, what me? Freedom come, what me? And the white them who were standing by were watching fearful, wondering, saying, who are these people who walk so proud? Who are these people who chant so loud? Are these not they who live in darkness and to whom we have given light? Are these not the sons and daughters of the savage who we have taught to read and write? Have we not taught them our history and honor them with our culture? And brought them into our great house to serve and stand at our great table? Have we not granted them what they deserve? Well, African proverbs say that only those who can listen can learn, and who can hear go and feel. We are are the sheep of Jah pasture, and now we shall inherit our land. And we are also the lion, against whom none shall stand. We are the sons and daughters of the original nation that gave to this world first knowledge of civilization. We were the victim of the white savage to whom we stretch out our hand, and not knowing they came to plunder, kill and slave our people and destroy our land. So now we step it down the road and it a cause sensation behind the colors of the new black nation and a one chance liberation. And we say, who are we? Africans. What do we want? Freedom. And we say, how do we get it? Fight, we must fight. We defend the truth and defend the right. This is Africa Liberation Day. A true black spirit is here to stay. We bow this to power, no one life this day. Freedom come, what me? A freedom come, what me? A freedom come, what me? What me?
And so one of the things that, we must push, all of us, is this fundamental question of the global nature of our African identities. That we stop, to see ourselves as Nigerians and Gabonese and, Ghanaians and Congolese and all these other nonsensical identities that we have. But not just that we talk about them like we're talking now, but that it's actually, embedded in our spirits, in our psyche, and in our approach to our work. Because those of you, who are on the continent know that we face, this crisis of religion, this crisis of ethnicism that is tearing us apart. And the only solution to that is going to, to start to address things and see things as a global body. And that when we speak of a Federation of African States, we're not just referring to us on the continent, but that we are coming to the table with all of our power. And our power means the millions of Africans in the diaspora. That there's that clarity of understanding. So it's not something we just talk about or we preach about, but that we actually begin to implement.
Tender and wadi be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai Mudzimu Mukuru. Give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodiye, African power and African liberation for all African people. Greetings and welcome, family. It's been a while since we've done a live session, but to begin, I want to say Afeshiapa, which in the Tree language means happy meeting of the year. It's a new year greeting, kings and queens. And a few years ago, I learned another greeting, which is Bon Comba, which is spoken in the Creole of our brothers and sisters in Haiti. And Bon Comba simply means happy fighting. And what that greeting symbolizes is the fact that our brothers and sisters in Haiti recognize the fact that currently Haiti is under the stranglehold of a neo-colonial state. Yeah. And so the New Year greeting, because the New Year actually begins with the celebration of the independence of Haiti, the greeting Bon Combat is to remind us that there is still work to do, that there is still a fight which we need to be engaged in. And so I greet you all, Bon Combat, which is, appropriate because this is the first time we're coming to you this year, family, what them call 2024, or what might more properly be called 6254. I believe, in accordance with the calendar of the updated calendar of our ancient Nile Valley ancestors. And as I say that, brothers and sisters, but I'm planning a lot of things here for the platform in the coming, well, throughout the year, really. Yeah, so do stay tuned, because we've got some beautiful things that are being planned. And one of them I'm going to announce tonight. So do stay tuned for that. But I want to send a special shout out to all those who are watching us via the Instagram. Is the first time we're streaming live. Go on the Instagram, right? You know, so big up on yourself. Yeah, share far and wide. But I'm made to overstand, and I've experienced this before, that Instagram tends to lock off the stream. Yeah, when it gets to about the 1 hour mark. All right. So in the those who are watching it in the Instagram, I have posted the link, yeah, to come and watch us live via our main channel. Yeah. So I invite you to do that now, so you don't get lock off, yeah, at the 1 hour mark, because our conversation today is going to be extremely important. And so for those who, by the way, me just returned from the motherland, yeah. I was in Ghana up until well, I landed back in England this morning, you know what I'm saying? So we're coming live straight to you, you know what I mean, from just landing, yeah, back in Babylon. And whilst I was in Ghana, an event was scheduled to take place. It was called the convention, yeah. The convention, it was supposed to feature the likes of Arikana Chihombori Quao, PLO Lumumba, Julius Malema, and Peter Obi, all from the nations of Zimbabwe, Kenya, Azania, South Africa, and Nigeria, respectively. These are noted names, yes, within the Pan-African space. They might be considered thought leaders. Definitely some of the more popular names that we hear via our social media in terms of engagement with Pan-African ideas, conversation, and organization. Okay, and so they were all scheduled to feature on this event, along with artists like Stonebwoy and a couple others who I believe Effia was one, but don't quote me on that. I'm gonna get back to that one in a second. Yeah, but they were all scheduled to feature on this event on the 7th of January. You know, unfortunately, I was not in Accra. Yes, on the 7th of January, I happened to be about 4 hours away in the beautiful city of Kumasi on that date. All right, so I was not going to be able to attend. But whilst I was there, I got a message, yeah, saying, but Ola, the event was cancelled. And I'm saying, wagwan. So, you know, I got on to shortly thereafter, my brother, who is our guest for this evening, and to ask what happened basically, and he was actually there. Okay, he was on the ground, and so we're gonna get you know, some information about what was taking place there. I want to bring to you a friend of mine from must be over a decade now. He is a noted author. Author of novels such as What You Call It, yes, which we have here, and also Mensa, yes, and a new one which is called Red Ants, which I'm going to get him to speak to in a second, which is about the British bombardment of the city of Accra. Also, he is, as I said, a writer. He's also an organizer in Ghana, a member of a number of campaigns and organizations, including the AAPRP, the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Without further ado, let me bring to you Brother Gbontwi Anyetei. Gbontwi, are you with us?
Yes. Good evening. Good evening. Can you see me? It looks like you can't see me. Am I seeing what you're seeing?
Well, we can't see you very yeah, you can't see me. We can't see you at all. You need some light, or is your camera off? You want to pay that your camera's on?
My camera's on. My camera's on. Yeah. Okay.
Is there light where you?
There is some, but not significant amount. Let me see if
not a lot.
I can improve the light situation.
All right.
Good evening, audience. Sorry about this.
Are you trying to show us
technical snafus? Yeah, because I can see kind of like the shadow.
I feel like you're trying to prove that you're well melanated. Oh, we see some movement.
Oh, that's,
but yeah, but
can you see me
okay,
better now?
we see some movement.
This looks kind of
Okay.
shadowy. I might.
Yes. Definitely.
Should I switch to my phone? I think the lighting would be better with my phone. Or should I?
It's up to you, my brother.
Laptop?
If you think it's up to you. Either will do. We generally prefer laptop, generally because of the landscape view. But if you think that your phone would be better, feel free to do so.
Yeah.
We'll just wait for you.
I feel like I look like a character from the Blair Witch Project, that old horror film.
It's up to you. So let me know. What you want to stick with the laptop or go to your phone?
Yeah, let's stick out with this, and then use it as a learning curve.
All right. So I've given you a brief introduction, my brother, but introduce the gotkushTV audience. So who is Gbontwi Anyetei? Because they need to know.
Yes, as you said, I'm an organizer. I belong to two organizations on the ground here in Ghana that are significant, I think, to this conversation. The All African People's Revolutionary Party, who I would hope your audience would be familiar with, and also the Economic Fighters League, which many in Ghana should also be familiar with, both Nkrumah-based organizations concerned with Pan-Africanism. And yes, we organize on a regular basis to fight this neo-colonial stranglehold that Africa has been held in right now. That's my background. But as I'm going to get into, my attendance at the program was not so, like under any official umbrella, any of those. I'm an admirer of all the speakers that were scheduled to speak, and that's why I was going to be there. I'm sure much of your audience in Ghana and otherwise are going to have some criticisms, I should say, of those speakers, which I'll probably share. I probably share, but for me, it was an opportunity to see them speaking in Ghana. Have you actually gone? Oh, you mentioned some of the speakers. Yeah, so you mentioned PLO Lumumba. PLO Lumumba, I've seen speak in Ghana before. Madame Quao, I haven't physically seen speak, but I've been in some webinars where she's been on the ground in Ghana. She's married to a Ghanaian, and so I know she's doing some sort of projects here. So I've been in webinars with her where she's speaking from Ghana, but I've never been in the same space with her. Peter Obi is probably the newest to fame, if we're going to use that word, out of the three of them. Out of the four of them. Yeah,
four of them.
Of the four of them. And I've heard of him like most of your audience, our audience, 2022 with the campaign that he fought against Tinubu. Was that 2022 or was that 2023? It just feels like it's been a long time, but it's probably just 2023, right? But I think I would have heard of him in the run-up to the election.
All right, and then there was Julius Malema, who I don't believe.
Sorry?
I would say that, and then there was Julius Malema, who I don't believe has spoken in Ghana before.
No, not that I know of. So he was scheduled to be there, but like he hasn't been part of the narrative since. I'm not quite clear on what
whether he was in the country or not.
With him. Yeah.
All right. So before we get into sorry, Gbontwi, there's a bit of a delay here, so we'll try to work with it. All right. But before we get into the what actually happened with the cancellation itself, what do you know of the organization of the event and how it was being received in Ghana in general and Accra in particular?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So first of all, it's important for everybody to understand that it was very short notice. even by Ghanaian standards, as you said, it was supposed to take place on the 7th. That was Sunday. And the first it was publicized was basically Thursday, which was the 6th. No. Sorry, my calendar's all off. That would have been like the 4th, I should say, of January. I had heard nothing of it before then. And usually anything of this kind of nature, I would have heard of as soon as it's sort of public, in public perception, people are publicly aware of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the first I heard of it was Thursday. It was announced that it was free. You just had to go through a login process, which I did. I'm not sure if this is the stage, but I shared with my organizations and said, shared my concerns that, for the likes of Malema especially, and a PLO Lumumba to some degree, to, come and be speaking in Ghana and not have the Pan-Afrikanist organizations on the ground be ready to receive him, as I believe was somewhat the case previously. I don't think there was any sort of formal notification the last time PLO, for instance, spoke in Ghana. But yeah, we were aware of it before he arrived, as it were. This was the first we heard of it. I was checking to confirm if that was the case for all those that I organized alongside, and it was also news to everybody else. So yeah, that was it. So other than that, there was nothing known on the posters. If you see the posters, there was no information about sponsors, which you usually get with events. There was no name of the brand as XYZ brings you the convention. It was all very blank. And then it just that was the background.
Okay. But for people that you spoke to, what was the vibe like with the people that were looking to attend the event?
Yeah, the vibe was literally, I mean, anybody who's in any Pan-Afrikanist WhatsApp group will see multiple videos featuring any one of these 4 people any given day. PLO Lumumba especially, his things get shared in audio form, as well as actual footage of his lectures sometimes. And those are actually the ones I prefer. You'll see his like a voiceover, kind of like with video capturing Africa's condition, that he's speaking to in his lecture. And most of the time it doesn't matter which African country it is, it's invariably relevant to whichever African you're speaking to. So there's that. And then that was it really. So it was kind of like, we're going to go along and see what they have to say. There was no perception of it being political with a big P. All 4 of these people we know are to some degree politically active around the continent and in the diaspora. But as far as I always use the sort of big P to do with frontline politics, as it is in Ghana, MPP versus NDC. Yeah, there wasn't that. There wasn't no conception that there would be any kind of relation to that kind of that element of the political scene, that particular theater.
Okay. Last question before we get into the specifics of the cancellation. Was there any concern about the fact that of all the 4 main speakers, none of them were Ghanaian?
That's an interesting question. No, beforehand, no. There was some of that was raised later. I think when it then did become, when the subject did then rise, that okay, it was kind of like in concordance with a Ghanaian political move, if you want, where it appeared that the man we'll be talking about, Freedom Jacob Caesar, was coming to announce his run for the office of president in the elections taking place at the end of the year here in Ghana. So yeah, before that, no, because it wasn't relevant in Ghana. There are very often many Pan-Africanist programs, of course, usually helmed, organized by, and with Ghanaian speakers, and then you do have Pan-Africanist programs too, with non-Ghanaian speakers. So it's nothing untoward, nothing too uncommon about that. But it was then, yeah, with the lens or the hindsight that, okay, this was what was supposed to happen there. Then people started raising the question of if this was, yeah, relevant to an election taking place in Ghana at the end of the year, why were there no Ghanaian speakers?
Okay, interesting. All right, we'll come back to that question. Family, we're speaking to Gbontwi Anyetei, a man of many talents and also a Pan-African organizer on the ground in Ghana. And I have a special announcement coming, shortly in relation to Gbontwi Anyetei. This is not the last time, you're going to see Gbontwi Anyetei on gotkushTV. He's going to become quite a regular face, brothers and sisters. So get used to the good looks from now. You know what I'm saying? Because, it's gonna be a regular situation. All right. Okay, family. So feel free to use the chat. Once again, special shout out to all those who are watching via Instagram. This is the first time we're streaming to Instagram, but we encourage you, because Instagram tends to lock off at the hour mark, to come through to our main channel on YouTube to view our conversation this evening. You will have the opportunity to ask Gbontwi questions in the chat. I'm not sure if we're going to take anything live on the panel, but we see how it goes. But definitely feel free to utilize the chat feature. And if you want your question or comment to be read out, please at gotkushTV, so that I'm able to differentiate the comment that you want read out from the general chit chat that tends to take place in the chat. But I want to big up everybody that's come through so far. All the people that are listening in. Big up to King Pao. Big up to Talawa. Talawa, me I got short you little more upon that question, yeah. So all tight. Big up to Jadorian, you don't know, in the building. Cheryl. Who else is there? Talawa again. Melaman is in the building. The Inspired Diabetic. Oh, big up yourself, my brother. The Inspired Diabetic. Greetings. I'm bigging up Temi, aka Temtems. You don't know. Temi's greeting you when she's saying a long time. You know what I'm saying? And also James O. All right. Okay. So give us an idea of what happens now. So the event is scheduled to start at what time? 7 o'clock, I believe, right?
Sorry, repeat that question. I didn't catch that. The event was scheduled to
start at 7 p.m. if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was supposed to start earlier. It's supposed to start at 5.
5 p.m. So 2 hours earlier. Okay. So leading up to 5 p.m.,
so
what's taking place at the venue?
So I got there, and forgive me, my African audience. When it comes to African punctuality, I do strive to be the change I want to see. I do, as being an organizer, I always plan to be on time to things, and I am on time to, things of a certain where I'm, where I have a role in it and so forth. But with a program like this, not being organized by myself, like I said, I was there as a private citizen. I am always a private citizen, obviously, but I wasn't there as an organizer of any kind. I planned to get there hour and a half sort of after it was scheduled to start. Having been a Ghanaian my whole life and living in Ghana, especially for the best part of the last decade, I knew that there was no chance it was going to start on time. So as far as what was happening before the scheduling, before the scheduled start, it was hearsay, and of course the evidence I could see with my eyes, which was that there was a lot of setup. By Ghana's usual standards that are usually quite laid back, it was a very well put together event. There was all kinds of big hoardings. They had these big marathon type of gateways at the end of marathons, those kind of like things that go way over the top with like an awning thing. And they had a big banner that went on the actual arch itself within Independence Square. So you could see that a lot of work had gone into like kind of like the props of the event. And then having got there 6:30ish, I met up with people who I knew, and they let me know. So some of them had got there at varying times before me. One person in particular had got there before the scheduled time, and he had said that literally some people had been inside sort of getting ready. For some context for your audience, Independence Square is open, free access space for the most, any other time of the year for the most part. You'll go in there, there'll be very often traders, it's a tourist site. You know, the seating area will very often have hawkers, people who are selling things, sort of resting. I guess maybe some indigents as well who kind of like have made a home of the place. So there's not it's a security zone officially, but it's not anywhere that people don't have access to. So what actually happened then with the from the eyewitness account of the person who got there early, because I believe he was in the area, people were then actually actively moved out to say you can't be here. Everybody then became an attendee whether they had planned to attend or not. So then people were moved out. And yeah, as I came to meet it, there were police at each of the two main gateways into Independence Square. And yeah, the word was that it was all kinds of confusion for the first hour. We didn't know what was happening. Police, which Ghana police are very good at doing, were be very tight-lipped about what was happening next. It was sort of after about an hour, so this would then take it to about the 8:30 mark, when it was like, okay, this is we're hearing that okay, this is cancelled, it's not going to go ahead. There's various mobilizations of police. Some are leaving, more, it felt to me that more were arriving, but it wasn't a complete sort of build-up of police presence, in the sense that, you know, police were only coming in to sort of effect their work. It was kind of like a lot of back and forth. And then, yeah, as you said, you probably got the text at the same time as me, as the other people who had booked and had done all of that stuff on their phone. When after that was about sort of after about half an hour of it being said by word of mouth by the police that and a few army as well, that it was cancelled, it wasn't going to go ahead.
Okay, interesting. So people are finding out whilst they're there. Now I'm hearing that some people was all arriving from like 2-3 o'clock, yeah, to attend this event.
Wow.
And so yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard people were there from all 3 o'clock. Yeah. And
okay.
And so then your people are in the venue. Yes. Which is
you're saying you're saying 3 p.m.
Go on. Yes.
You mean 3 p.m. in the afternoon?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yes, exactly. Yeah, I knew somebody like that. Sorry, for some reason I heard that as 3 a.m. So literally the following morning, people were still coming in. No. Yeah, that's correct. I met the one person I knew had got there sort of 3 p.m. That's 2 hours before it's supposed to start. And then he was able to speak about other people that were there specifically for Graham. I think that some of the context of that, a lot of people would arrive early is because of the Dirty December and a lot of the sort of Ghana partying that was taking place. People were used to things getting to capacity quite quickly and then not getting decent spacing. So that's actually made a lot of early people out of Africans trying to get to somewhere so that they can get a decent location to see
100%. Okay. Yeah. All right. So it's literally people are gathered for this event. It's supposed to start at 5:30. 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. Yeah. Somewhere between 6:30 and 7 p.m. People find out that it's cancelled, and they find out via a text. Yeah. What happens on the ground at that point? All right. So at the point at which people are receiving this text, there's police on the scene, there's army personnel on the scene. What happens at that point on the ground?
At that point, people were annoyed. Definitely people were angry. The theories start going as far as why it got cancelled. Many of which I agree with in at central level. And kind of like annoyance actually too about why it hadn't been said earlier, because like I said, people were pushed out from before the event was supposed to have started. So the kind of like the word was already coming from above that this thing wouldn't happen. People were sort of feeling that, especially the actual speakers themselves their networks or something could have sort of let the word go out that, by the way, this event is not going to go ahead. Some of the people there are not from Accra. Some people had come in from other regions. So yeah, there was annoyance. There was some press there, not much, but there was some press. That's another conversation as to why there wasn't more press, given the public notoriety, if that's the right word, of many of the speakers. And then so there was that kind of a thing, and then people sort of making their vlogs to that effect as well.
Right. So let's get into it then. Yeah. So some of the first things that I heard was that we don't know exactly what happened, but we know it's the government. Yeah. And I guess the presence of the police and the army would certainly suggest that. And then about a day later, or maybe in between, like in a 24-hour period, I read or what something that said that the government had put out a statement to the effect that the event was supposed to have clashed with something that the government was supposed to be hosting in the same space on the same day, or something of that sort. Yeah. What have you heard? What are you able to verify as regards the reasons for the cancellation? Who pulled the trigger, so to speak? Yeah. And what was the motive?
Yeah, I mean, it will definitely be the government. No other force in Ghana would have the pull to organize police like that and army at Independence Square, because like I said, it is officially a security zone. It is more relaxed than most of the security zones because it's also a tourist attraction. So yeah, it was the government. It's just a matter of why it was the government. And of course, to some degree, when the action was decided. As far as the statement you're talking about, that has turned out to be a fabrication. Can you call it a fabrication? So somewhere, I think that same night, or possibly the next morning, Monday, there was a press release that went out. Well, it seemed like it was a press release, I should say. PDF, JPEG and PDF on people's phones, saying that this event had been cancelled because some military mobilizations are supposed to take place. Not military, there's supposed to be another state event. It's supposed to take place on the premises, on the site. Sort of the public forensic examination that took place after, and people who remembered from last year made the point that no, this letter has been doctored. So it'd been dated for the 7th, but the letter basically in its entirety was recreated from last year, and that was Chance the Rapper. Chance the Rapper threw an event called the Black Star.
Yes.
Concert. Was it the Black Star concert?
I think he might call it conference.
I went to the Black Star Summit.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, it was a twofold event that Chance the Rapper did. It was the Black Star Summit, which I did attend. That was, I believe, a day or two after the concert, the party. And originally, on the day of his event, this statement had arrived to say it's been cancelled. And this is very relevant. That attempted cancellation, I should say, is very relevant to the conversation about this cancellation here. And apparently, after some negotiation, that event actually went ahead. Fast forward to a year later, another cancelled event, another attempted cancellation. This one stuck as a cancellation, and somebody. I don't know if we'll ever find out. I've never understood the motivation of people that put out fake news. That's if it's a private individual. If it did come from the powers that be, it would be messier than I would expect of them usually. Although my expectations of them are in the gutter for the best part. It just created more confusion and as to what it was all about.
Right.
So that to this point, there has been official statement of that kind from the
right.
Personnel have spoken to it to the press because in hindsight it was going to be the launch of Freedom Jacob Caesar's political ambitions. It didn't need any explanation really after that, if you like. So yeah, I don't think there will be a statement as to official statement as to why it was cancelled. It's kind of like understood within that Ghana context that a political event like this would have to be handled with all sorts of protocol. And yeah, I think that none of the standing parties, if they were in government, would allow Independence Square to be used for that.
You're right. Which brings us to probably the most important aspect of this conversation, yeah, because the events surrounding the cancellation of the convention is one thing, but we need to understand this within the context of Ghanaian politics, yeah, and the way that the Ghanaian government operates in general. And you alluded to this a while ago in relation to the Black Star Summit with Chance, and you said that that attempted cancellation is relevant to this particular actual cancellation. Could you put this cancellation in the context of the Ghanaian government and how it operates in relation to Pan-African organizing, more generally speaking?
Yeah. There's get ready because the amount of contradictions coming at you will blow your mind if either you're not Ghanaian or you're also not from a nation with massive amounts of passive aggressive behavior emanating from your political figures. So Ghana, and I'm grateful for this, has this reputation as a lighthouse within Pan-Africanism for many reasons, starting with, to some degree, starting with Kwame Nkrumah, our independence leader, who was a staunch Pan-Africanist. And that reputation has been leveraged on and traded on by the worst individuals. And of course, by worst individuals, I mean our politicians today, who are not only the worst representatives of Pan-Africanism you could ever hope to meet or hear from, but are actually enemies of the cause in every facet it can. So as I said, the Black Star event that Chance the Rapper tried to cancel, they tried to cancel that Chance the Rapper organized, and that it went ahead. So just the title alone would have scared the government. And this would be hard for a lot of people to understand because, hold on, not only is Ghana the birthplace of Pan-Africanism, but we actually have a Black Star on our flag. And for those of you who don't know, that star is a direct influence of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey's enterprise, not limited to shipping, the Black Star Line was one of the things that very much influenced Nkrumah in his studies of the African condition, especially when he was in the US. And so that addition to the Black Star, that addition of the Black Star to our flag was Nkrumah paying homage, and of course also Nkrumah recognizing all the things that Garvey recognized with the Black Star, the way the color black, especially as far as our we the melanated, has been demonized and stigmatized, and for many people still today, especially in Marcus Garvey's era, but all the way 100 years later in our time, the only thing related to black that Africans would have seen, and by Africans I'm including people of African heritage, the melanated worldwide, would be negative. So to see Black connected to excellence, connected to the flag would be what was new for a lot of people in such a positive way, in a non-demonic, non-negative kind of way. So this event, the attempt to cancel it would have been because of that Black Star element, to say, hold on, this is going to be a Pan-Africanist program. And then what happened with this cancellation, as far as some sort of conversation, the confusion of a few hours, they would have, of course, spoken to Chance and or his representatives, and then they would have realized, okay, no, we don't have anything to fear from this. It's going to be it's going to be singing and dancing, so that can go ahead. By that comment, I don't mean to be condescending or to imply that there's anything negative at all about singing and dancing. Shakara will confirm that I'm a big enjoyer of a great party. But of course, as far as political discourse goes, this is bread and circuses. Most of what took place in Ghana over the course of the month of December, and to some degree, pouring into January, is bread and circuses. Nothing to do with changing the oppressed status quo of either Ghana or any other African country, and that's exactly how the political figures in Ghana like it. And so, having established that Black Star party last year was safe, that went ahead, and then having discovered that this year's program was not safe, as far as it being a platform for these speakers to increase the political awareness and consciousness of the masses, it was cancelled. Now, to put this into context, I think I said at the top of this program that I know there are criticisms of all these four figures. As I've said, also I'm an Nkrumahist, so I have a very, very high standard when it comes to political action. My heroes: Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Winnie Mandela. These are people that were as much mobilizers, were also organizers. They always had a plan. They showed serious leadership. They had a very specific ideology. Every action they took sort of aimed for a very particular impact and shock to the system of those that we consider our oppressors. And they came with a certain amount of integrity. Now, for these speakers, like I said, I very much enjoy what they have to say, but they don't have that to their CVs right now. Peter Obi's was very much excited the youth, and I would say rightly so in Nigeria. But if we are being very clinical about the analysis, he wasn't going to be a danger to the neo-colonial system. He was going to be, if he had succeeded in winning, he was about reform. He would have brought massive amounts of transparency. If he had delivered on his promises, he was about reform. He was going to bring about a lot of transparency and efficiency to the systems. But as far as flow of resources, as far as the masses' ownership of means of production, not only did he not promise that, but it was not something that he was planning on delivering. Similarly with PLO Lumumba, he's mostly a public speaker. I followed with interest a political campaign that he ran in Kenya, which a lot of people had been advising him to run for a while. And he sort of went for sort of regional political representation in Kenya. But I think for me, it was just an exercise in martyrdom. There was a lot of things that he could have, PLO Lumumba could have done in his campaign to increase his chances of success. But basically what he did, and it has its uses for a lot of people who sort of don't maybe realize the depths of the way the neo-colonial system runs. He ran the political party, the political campaign, as a typical political campaign, as a somebody who has that sort of ambition. He didn't bring sort of any of the lessons that sort of the people that I've mentioned, as far as Winnie Mandela, Malcolm X, sort of changing the way that politics is approached. He went by the books, regional representation. This is how an election campaign is run. So it was all kind of like based on words and you know, sort of plans. And of course, to many in Kenya, as is the case in Ghana, and I'm going to say most other African countries, we don't know that to be the way that political campaigns are run. It's literally who is bringing bags of rice for us, who is bringing other kinds of incentives, and those are the people we're going to vote for. As far as just ideas and so forth, it's literally something that most people on the continent, and to some degree also even in the world, do not recognize. We know that the corruption of the masses takes different forms on the continent than it does abroad. But when you hear terms like lobbying and other things like that, we know that that's basically the same thing by a different color. And so yes, with that, it was enough basically to increase those people speaking. Julius Malema is a different matter. He too has his critics, but I'll say of the four, he's the one who could be considered more of a danger to the status quo, as far as the fact that he does speak to certain ideologies, socialism and so forth, that would be more of a threat. So this event stayed cancelled because, yes, Ghanaians, we are surrounded by politics every day. There's no street, even when there is no election going on, there is no street, I can safely say, especially in the built-up towns, and but also in, you know, sort of the more rural sides where there's not relics of previous campaigns, campaign posters, banners. So we're surrounded by politics all the time, but the political forces, especially the two main parties, who are basically a duopoly, they represent the same interests. They want the political discourse at a very, very basic level. As in, talk about politics all you want, have radio stations talking about politics all you want, but nothing that changes the main system that they both benefit from when each of them take their seat.
Yeah. So I mean, are there other? Because I know that
Or as any.
Sorry, finish your sentence. Finish your sentence. Sorry, you cut out for a second there.
As far as any political dialogue, what I would consider real political dialogue, and by that I mean something that changes the system, has Africans understanding their history and the power that we have as far as what we could do with our resources, what we could do as far as uniting with other Africans and so forth. Anything around that level of politics, Nkrumah's politics, Cabral's politics, that is but actively campaigning by both political parties.
Yes. So I know that last year and I think the previous year there's been demonstrations in Ghana under the banner of Fix the Country and things of that nature. And there's been some heightened awareness. I remember when I was there in 2021, there were some protests, I believe, taking place in the Volta region or north of the Volta region. I can't remember exactly what. But the question I'm asking, are there other examples of the government acting in this way? You know, cancelling events.
Yes,
How does the government generally? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, there definitely are examples. That's why the fingerprints of it being a government cancellation and it not being anything to do with health and safety, or some of the other reasons that I think might get cancelled, it was very clear because, as you mentioned, Fix the Country, that's an ongoing political campaign. Many of the Fix the Country demonstrations were suppressed in this very same way. Very often a pretext is found for why it can't go ahead, to do with we're not able to supply the police to monitor the program. So that's why we're preventing it. Same thing happened with in 2020. There was a plan. This was even a vigil. This was a joint vigil that was to commemorate George Floyd with the increase of that sort of BLM presence that year, and also a lady, I should say an elder, make sure I get her name right, Nana Denta, or let me say Denta. I'm not sure if I've got her name right, but she was killed that year in a witch camp in Ghana, and both of these were very different kinds of deaths. Both of them spoke to that conversation about Black Lives Matter and how the term Black Lives Matter, this is, you know, organization aside, looks on the continent in comparison to to internationally amongst the diaspora, especially with a kind of minority presence and usually a police force with the national majority who are opposed to any kind of you know, sort of Black mobility, basically. So these are campaigns that have taken place, events that have taken place that have been suppressed. Now, those and also this are both ideal test cases where we analyze how Ghana's government and political class show their foreign allegiance, their puppet status, and the fact that they are traitors to Africa's well-being, and how they go about doing it. Because Akufo-Addo in particular, the current president, he has gotten a very artificial appreciation, I would say, by well-meaning Africans around the world, especially this beyond aid speech that he made quite soon into his presidency, his first term, which had a lot of people distracted and confused, and, you know, increased expectations. Really, people thinking that he really knew what he was doing. I know of his politics before this, and I knew that there was no way this man was going to take us beyond aid. But it was a learning curve for a lot of people, and you know, provided what I would call is lessons learned, to say that, okay, the next time you hear a politician speaking on Twitter because of your desperation for Africa to take its rightful place based on, you know, the resources we have in international status, you're desperate for it, so you believe things like this. But anyway, he betrayed himself and sort of showed himself, you know, to quote Khalid Mohammed, we're able to lift up his skirt and see what he was really about at that time. With the cancellation of the vigil for George Floyd and our elder, and also this recent, these are all examples of what is his true take on anything to do with Pan-Africanism, anything to do with African emancipation, liberation, or any kind of real political discourse around how an effective country and continent should operate. He doesn't want any of that kind of conversation to take place. He wants the political illiteracy where we are, and it be about noise and colors of shirts and all this kind of thing. That's where he wants the conversation to remain.
All right, brothers and sisters, for those who are watching on Instagram, we are about at the hour mark here. So your stream may chop off soon. So feel free to click that link and come through to the main channel where you can continue. We're going to continue for a bit, brothers and sisters, explore the dynamics of this thing. And I'm gonna make after I do this housekeeping, I'm gonna make a special announcement in relation to Gbontwi Anyetei's presence on gotkushTV. All right. So yeah, for those who are watching on Instagram, feel free to come through to watch on the main channel. And we look forward to you joining us here. Bigging up everybody who's here right about now. I saw my president in the building, former President General and current First Assistant President General of the UNIA ACL RC 2020, Baba Sengo Baye, is in the building. Big up yourself. Rich the Elder is in the building. Kushti is in the building. Big up yourself, Kushti. Igloo is in the building. Coffee Campbell is in the building. I've already mentioned Talawa. You know what I'm saying? Bryonte, big up yourself. Nick, big up yourself. And all of the side. Hey, M.A. Brown is in the building. Big up yourself. And I've already mentioned Melaman. So yeah, you don't know, family. So I'm taking your questions now. Yeah, taking your questions. Gbontwi, are you open to receiving questions on the panel? I'll share the link for brothers and sisters to come through. If you're cool with that.
Can I see the questions, or do you want to relate them to me? I'm seeing.
No, there are no questions typed now. I'm gonna get people to type them soon, but I may invite people to come on the panel as well to ask themselves directly. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the questions here. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, brothers and sisters, if you have a question for Gbontwi Anyetei, feel free to type it in the chat right about now. And please at gotkushTV, we have been discussing the dynamics surrounding the cancellation of an event which was titled The Convention, which was scheduled to feature Mama Arikana Chihombori Quao, PLO Lumumba, Julius Malema, and Peter Obi from the nations of Zimbabwe, Kenya, South Africa, and Nigeria, respectively. And this event was cancelled. There's been no official statement, but all of the available evidence points to the fact that it was the powers that be from on high, as far as the government of Ghana is concerned, that cancelled this thing. Yeah. And so I want to say that if you are interested in the politics of Ghana in particular, and Mama Africa in general, we are proud and pleased to announce that on a monthly basis, our brother Gbontwi Anyetei will be joining us, yes, for a special podcast. This special podcast is inspired by the fact that the nation of Ghana is set to take part in a general election at the end of this year. In December of 2024, the nation of Ghana is going to vote for a new president. And so we thought it would be a good opportunity to delve into the politics of Ghana and the dynamics of this election, follow the dynamics of this election going forward, as a snapshot and as an example of how politics take place, yes, so in Africa and by extension the Caribbean as well, generally speaking, but more specifically focusing on the issue of Ghana. Gbontwi, are you back with us? You cut up for a second there.
Oh, okay, yeah. It looked like you cut off, but I was like, it's probably my end.
Okay. It may have been a bit of both, to be honest. So we give thanks, yeah. But yes, I'll announce that the fact that we're going to be doing a podcast leading up to the Ghana election, but we're not only going to be focusing on the specifics of the electoral campaigns. Yeah, we're going to be delving into the political landscape, the economic landscape, and the social landscape of Ghana in general, to make sense of the election and then touch on the election itself and the dynamics of it in that context. And anything you want to say on that before we go forward, Gbontwi?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because of and that's of course the nature of the politics and of the revolution, because this sort of happens sort of in the very spontaneously. Is a very ideal, like I said, is a real ideal snapshot of Ghanaian action against any kind of revolutionary, potential revolutionary moments, which of course this was and wasn't. We'll be talking more about Freedom Jacob, Caesar, and so forth. Yeah, it's just something that we had to get together and discuss. But of course, when our podcast gets going, yeah, we'll be discussing these things in more detail and with more research done.
100%. Brothers and sisters, you can feel free to ask a question. I'll share the link in the chat also, so you can click the link to come through and ask Gbontwi a question, or you can type your question in the chat, please, at gotkushTV, if you are typing your question in the chat. And as you come through on the panel, the only rule is respect. Whilst we're getting those questions in, Gbontwi, are there any dynamics that I haven't questioned you about this cancellation so far that are important that you wish to highlight? Anything relevant to it?
Yeah, I feel like we have to discuss who was the organizer ultimately, because
oh yes,
as a Pan-Africanist, as a Pan-Africanist, I tend to think of things at a macro level, because I live in Ghana and I'm Ghanaian. Very often, of course, I'll be thinking about specific Ghana contexts. But yeah, I'll often think of things at a macro level. But of course, this is something that took place in Ghana, and yeah, those who organized it and what that means and what that meant, is significant. So, so as I said, there was no inkling to me about who the organizers were. I very much like the speakers, so that's why I was there. And then when we got there, yeah, kind of like the conversations were being had where we're being held outside the event. People are saying, oh, they believe it was it's an event by this organization called the New Force. Not even an organization, I'm gonna call it campaign, a movement. So the New Force, I will say, for the last 3 months, there have been billboards popping up in Ghana with a man of varying wardrobe with a mask in front of his face, with the hashtag New Force. Of course, very expensively located billboards, not nothing cheap. And so there's been a lot of conversation and conjecture about those. I did assume, and in hindsight, it was correct, that it was the person of Freedom Jacob Caesar that was the man behind these masks and this New Frontier campaign, new Force, sorry, I should say, campaign. Freedom Jacob Caesar is hard to describe. Even the fact that I'm calling him by that name, I'm not quite clear if that's the status right now. So he was known as Nana Kwame Bediako. That's his, I guess, his government, as it was his government name is Nana Kwame Bediako. A businessman with lots of rumors and innuendo, which I won't get into. I don't want to get your video taken down for would it be libel? And it's
something like that.
Third hand and fourth hand. But yeah, he's a business person with lots of rumors about what that business is, and some of his business that we know about, some very luxury self-service apartments in Accra. I don't know of any outside of Accra pertaining to that. So yeah, this is who he is, and his kind of claims to fame before any kind of like political inclinations were that he bought Cristiano Ronaldo's Bugatti, and that Bugatti was housed in one of these self-service apartments, kind of like a display space on the road outside this apartment block for all to see. A vehicle that cost the better part of £1 million, euros, whatever currency you want to call it, you want to use, being displayed on the high streets of Osu, Accra, which is as poor as any other suburb of the country. So yes, insert whatever word you want there around his around the insensitivity of that and what that means. And of course, there was some debate about, you know, creating aspirational thoughts in people. I think my first, the first time I realized that he had some political ambition was somewhere around 2020. I think I'd known of him for about a couple of years by then, when he started making certain comments and some what would look like political campaigns around, you know, maybe entering the political sphere. It's various interviews. I think he's been interviewed by a lot of YouTubers that, you know, people can look up. So yeah, you'd have to look up Freedom Jacob Caesar, Nana Kwame Bediako, and another nickname of his is Cheddar, like Cheddar the cheese.
Cheddar.
So those are 3 separate names that you'd have to look up, and you'll see different sort of commentaries and, you know, content that he has made. Okay, so we started to see that, okay, he has some political ambition. I didn't think that he would move this early. I didn't think he would move this year, and I didn't know what the nature of that move would be. I was, is the right word, hoping, or you know, I was kind of like, I was thinking that my optimism would be triggered, I would say, if the political move he made was to say, okay, I have certain resources. He's, you know, very often in videos with other people of success around the world. I think he gets, you know, he's been captured, you know, in conversation and meetings with the like of Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, and so forth. Just other kind of like international figures. I was, yes, like I said, my optimism was going to be triggered if, for instance, he would sort of offer to fund a political movement that maybe met certain terms, because the kind of things he was talking about were pretty much, you know, the usual complaints about the condition that Africa is in, the fact that the youth are so unemployed, and the lack of initiative and long-term thinking within the system, the inefficiencies. Nothing that anybody who has been to the continent, anybody from the continent, doesn't speak about on a regular basis. But of course, he's especially placed to be able to maybe do something about that. So I was thinking, okay, that might be the nature of the political move. But then, yes, when I saw the new force, the man with the I think one of the particular images is a man in a suit, double-breasted suit with a handkerchief in the top pocket. I knew it was him, because that's another element of his. He's very, anytime you see him, he'll be fully decked out in some form of Western designer clothes or military sort of, I think they call dress uniform of a European style military dress uniform. So yeah, he has his critics, but he's a very public figure, partly because of his the way he dresses. So yeah, you know, I was in observer mode with him to see what would take place, and maybe to be on standby for if he would be initializing any political action that would be of interest to a Pan-Africanist such as myself.
Yes, interesting. What you said is even more interesting based upon, because the only person that you've actually heard from, to my knowledge, since the cancellation is PLO Lumumba. We haven't. I haven't heard a statement from Arikana Chihombori Quao. I haven't heard a statement from Julius Malema, and I haven't heard a statement from Peter Obi. Am I correct in my knowledge there?
Yes, I saw. I haven't corroborated that yet. I saw a statement shared, or at least words, or some sort of interview shared by PLO Lumumba earlier today, but I haven't verified that. So I'm not clear on if it's really from him.
On what?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't heard from Peter Obi
or Malema. So it's very interesting, in terms of the. By the way, let me give people an example of what you're talking about. So this is an example of the billboards, that were going up around Accra. I also saw them in Cape Coast and probably Kumasi, which are both outside of Accra. I also went to the Volta region, I don't think I saw any in the Volta region, but even then I could be mistaken. I just don't recall it. Yeah, they may have been there, but I just don't recall it. But these are the kinds of billboards that Gbontwi is referring to. Okay, so we saw these going up, and I never, and I usually I had a mind to at one point, but I never actually searched the hashtag to see what it was referring to. But there's a few of them where the masked individual is in what is referred to in Chi as a untuma, which is like the wrap, kind of garment with a kente inspired design. And then you saw ones like these where they're more suited and booted and that kind of thing. Yeah. And so it's interesting that this particularly wealthy individual is stepping into the political realm and has seen to use a Pan-African, at least an openly Pan-African image, not just in terms of the image that we see on the screen, but also in terms of the speakers that were chosen to be at the convention to do so.
Exactly.
And so one of the things that we'll get into in the podcast, because even Nana Akufo-Addo is guilty of this in some respect, is kind of like borrowing from popular Pan-African talking points, imagery, figures. You know what I'm saying? To curry favor with the people, but doing the complete opposite of everything that those people that they're quoting or depicting would stand for. So
exactly.
and I don't say that to sound overly cynical, but it's just the reality of what we're dealing with. The same thing happens in Jamaica. You have politicians who every election, you'll believe that they're the most Garveyite.
Exactly.
Saying, right?
Exactly. It's offensive.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's deeply offensive. I don't have the issues you have with sounding cynical on anything related to Nana Akufo-Addo. With his left hand, he's actively suppressing anything vaguely Pan-Africanist, anything vaguely about African liberation, whether economic or mental, with his left hand, and then with his right hand, he's as you said, he's borrowing from our movement to not only improve his branding, which is offensive enough, but also to arguably fill his pockets. So as of last year, he's also entered the reparations conversation. I'm sure our audience here will have varying takes on reparations, but whatever your take is, to have somebody who is proven to, and this is one we have no fear of libel here, to be corrupt, talking about reparations whilst bleeding what resources there are, it goes beyond offense into deep treason by an African. So as well as the beyond aid conversation that we spoke about earlier.
Well, one thing that we'll get into, and for those who are just joining us, we're speaking to Gbontwi Anyetei, Pan-African organizer, writer, and a brilliant mind, brothers. I'm not saying that because he's my friend, but genuinely, Gbontwi has a very brilliant mind, especially when it comes to creative writing. And we're gonna get you to talk about your book at some point as well, Redance, so do stay tuned, because we're gonna hope to make sure that brothers and sisters acquire that book throughout the length of our podcast as well. But we're going to be doing a podcast, which I will say the working title is Democracy Under Fire. Yes, Ghana, Democracy Under Fire.
Democracy. Isn't it democracy?
I was going to unveil that later on, but all right.
Oh, my bad.
You're correct. Yeah. So democracy is pronounced democracy, yes, alluding to the fella Nicola Pokuti song "Beast of No Nation," where he presents a play on words between democracy and democracy, and to characterize politics, and particularly electoral politics in Africa. Okay, well, in the world, to be honest with you, because he's not just talking about the continent in that song. He's actually referring to the relationship between democracy in the West and how that manifests itself in Africa, and and who has the power in those dynamics. Yeah, and so we're going to be delving into the thing. But one of the things that we need to look into more. So I remember people got excited some years ago when Nana Akufo-Addo was in front of, I think Macron had visited Ghana, and they had a presser. And, Akufo-Addo had some strong words, yeah? You know what I'm saying? About the reality of French neocolonialism, yeah? You know what I'm saying? He was speaking, he was preaching the gospel, yeah? And then a couple years later, he sells off the main port in Ghana, in Tewa, to a French billionaire. A French billionaire who owns about 15 ports, yeah, similar ports on the coast of West Africa in various different nations, yeah. Yoruba Demon is in the back chat, so we're gonna get them to come through in a second. Before you come through, though, I have some questions in the chat that I want to get to, so we don't neglect the chat. So stay where you are, Yoruba Demon. We're gonna come to you. Interesting name. But Nick Asgill is asking, why can't we use the colors, the sounds, and the electric atmosphere that usually hypnotizes the masses, but for good rather than the exploitation of the people? Okay, you feel free to answer that, won't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is it.
I think. Go on.
Yeah. 100% agreed. As an organizer on the ground here in Ghana, I can definitely say that many African organizations are definitely doing that. Use it for good. I know my brother Shakara visited the good people at Abibitumi. They are always very assertive and keen on using the entire pantheon of the African sensory spectrum in their revolutionary action, where very often on the ground in Ghana, political discourse and things can be quite sterile and dry. For those who don't already have like a avid interest in it, such as myself, as well as the Freedom Center. There are places that it is used for good. Please don't think that the colors and sounds of African joy and celebration are being used just as distractions. There are places that you can go on a weekly basis where our music is being used as it's supposed to be, for our affirmation as African people, pride in ourselves, as reminders of the great things that Africans have achieved.
Yes, definitely. Give thanks for that question. Nick Kushti is asking, question, has any of the four main speakers made comments in relation to the cancellation? I think we've answered that by now. But yeah, so we've only heard from PLO Lumumba, and even then his comment is not necessarily verified, but his comment was basically to allude to the importance of the legacy of the Asaja for Kwame Nkrumah, and the statement that he made that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. That's the quotation that I heard, but it wasn't in his voice. It was somebody was reading this, and this is what he was supposed to have said. But he what was PLO Lumumba? He was confirmed to have been in the country, though, correct?
Yeah, he definitely was in the country. He was at the presser the next day, so he's definitely here. Everybody but Malema are confirmed to have been here, basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. And Coffee Campbell is asking, how would you improve Ghana's GDP and GDP per capita? Which is a question that is probably beyond the remit of our conversation today, but you can feel free to give it a short answer if you wish.
Like the short answer would be, as an indicator of economic strength, I think the GDP is terrible. It's entrenched in capitalist ideology, and very rarely does it have any significant relation with the fortunes of the average African populace, the masses. So it's not something that I subscribe to personally. But what I would say, to answer that question in brief, if that would be an answer, is for me, it wouldn't be about reinventing the wheel. So many of our Pan-Africanist scholars and leaders have spoken to, and to some degree demonstrated, the way a effective, efficient African economy could be run. Whether it's the Marcus Garvey we've spoken about, whether it's Kwame Nkrumah, who wrote several books around African economics, whether it's Amos Wilson, speaking in the context specifically around African commerce within the diaspora, much of which is relevant on the continent. But yeah, we have had Black African scholars, economists, who I put way ahead of the people who coined GDP as an indicator, speak to all the resources that we have at our disposal as Africans. Oh, and of course, Black Economics by Sheikh Anta Diop. That's one of my favorite books, where a very small book as well, where he was talking about kind of like the role that the Congo would have in a united Africa.
So you mean Black Africa? You mean Black Africa?
Yeah, Black Africa. Yeah, the full title, the economic rationale for a federated state
and cultural basis for a federated state. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, Sheikh Anta Diop's book there. So yeah, there's been a few scholars that we can reference around that. So I wouldn't want to reinvent the wheel. Greater minds that might have dealt
100%.
How Ghana's GDP could be.
100%. By the way, on that topic of what Gbontwi had just said a minute ago in terms of the inadequacies of GDP, I did a session a few weeks ago on that topic. End of November, I do believe it was. So you can check the archives of gotkushTV. It's entitled Economic Deceptions. Yeah, and we go into the fallacy and the chicanery and the deceptions that are projected through the hypervalorization of the concept of GDP as a marker for economic growth. Yeah, and I will only add that those who seek to enforce this particular indicator are usually engaged in some kind of manipulation and an attempt at control. Yeah. Of the economy, you know what I'm saying, of your economy. It's a very Western indicator to suit Western purposes. Having said that, it is a matter of fact, yeah, that if we were to go by the indicator, many of our leaders did actually improve the GDP of their country somewhat, right? You know what I'm saying? So, including Nkrumah, yeah. I don't think in fact, that era, as a continent in total, the GDP of Africa had like, not massive, but significant growth in the period of the 60s and the 70s, and that began to rapidly decline in the 70s, and well, I should say rapidly decline and or stagnate in the 70s, particularly with the imposition of IMF and World Bank policies, right? So even sometimes by the inadequate indicator, there's some relevant and interesting information and talking points that can come about. We have another question here from Melaman. What is the UNIA and the guest organization plans for this year in Ghana? That is a good question. But there was a question earlier I saw that I haven't starred, but somebody was asking, is there a branch of the UNIA in Ghana? There is. I can speak to that as a member. In Bolgatanga, which is the north of Ghana, which is just before Burkina Faso, and also in Accra. Same kind of people operate in both, because a lot of people that are in Bolgatanga live in Accra and go back and forth between the two. So it just depends. However, to answer that question in more depth, I will probably get the brothers and sisters on. Yeah. Shout out to brother Shaka Sumani, Jawan, who makes my drums when I'm in Accra as well. You know what I'm saying? And all the brothers who are interactive there. But as far as the Economic Fighters League and the AAPRP, Gbontwi, are there specific plans for Ghana this year, particularly as it's an election year? And you can feel free to save some of what you're going to say for the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the bottom line is it was always going to be political education. That's what both organizations focus always is. It can sometimes sound, oh, is that all kind of thing? But as a starting point and as one of the many things that we, we work on, but as that's sort of like a standing priority, it cannot be underestimated. The level of political illiteracy in Ghana is astounding, with people honestly feeling like the politicians in Ghana as we have it now is all there is. It's all there ever has been, and so forth. And then there'll be some things that will definitely be also accelerated about as the election comes up. So definitely watch this space. We'll be definitely talking about it more in the podcast as we go along, as my brother spoke about.
All right, good. So we'll take a couple more questions in the next 5 minutes. If there are no more questions in the next 5 minutes, we're going to proceed to our close. Yoruba Demon seems to have dropped off, so we'll give them a second to get back. And if not, then we'll close and reconvene at a later stage. Brothers and sisters, you are in tune to gotkushTV. We are discussing why the convention, the event called the convention, was cancelled in Ghana, Accra, on the 7th of January. And so it was revealed, it seems obvious that the agency behind the cancellation was in fact the government of Ghana, but it's also been revealed that the agency behind the event itself was a man who Brother Gbontwi was explaining to us is variously known as Cheddar, Nana Bidiako, and Freedom. What's it? Freedom something Caesar.
Jacob Caesar.
Caesar.
Freedom Jacob Caesar.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Who has no particular Pan-African credentials to speak of, especially in comparison to those who he had on the bill, speaking. But seemed to have wanted to use the event to launch his political career in Ghana. Yes. And there are questions about his particular angle and or his motivations in that regard. Oh yes, Gbontwi, Kushti is asking for you to share your social media.
Yeah, as my name is spelt, I'm not sure. I think you guys can see it. Gbontwi Anyetei. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you can look that up on any of the social media or any of the main ones. If they're still the main ones, Facebook. Or is it Meta now? Is everybody calling it Meta? Twitter? If everybody's calling it X. Even LinkedIn. And then the same name if you search under Amazon for where my books are being sold. The last one that was mentioned by my brother there, The Red Ants, that's not yet available online. But yes, we're working on getting worldwide distribution for that one.
Thank you very much, Gbontwi. Questions? Feel free to get them through in the next 5 minutes, or forever hold your peace. And please at gotkushTV. Please at gotkushTV. In order to get your questions read out, shouting out, melanated goddess, big up yourself, sister, and you don't know all the thing go. Yeah, family. I got a few more shows coming as well. So we're gonna have a creative analysis show. You know what I'm saying? Coming, I'm not going to say the name of that one. And then Kush University is coming back very, very soon. Yeah, so do stay tuned for that. But I'm very excited about this one, focusing on the Ghana election and the politics of Ghana. Because yeah, you know what I'm saying? We need to do that. As I said, when you look at the politics of a nation like Ghana, you're really looking at it as a microcosm of the black world in general. A lot of the dynamics that take place in Ghana are going to take place in Nigeria. Are going to shades of it are going to take place in South Africa, in Congo, in Jamaica, in Haiti, yes, in Suriname. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You're going to find shades of it. But as Brother Gbontwi has said, a lot of the political awareness and education of our people is relatively low in terms of the mechanics, and the political system is designed to elicit our disinterest. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's designed, yeah, to keep us disinterested with it, even though a lot of the decisions that are made at that level affect our lives very directly. And so we're trying to find creative ways to inform and educate our people, and doing this podcast is one such way. All right. And so we have no further questions as it stands at the moment. But Gbontwi, do let the people them know, just so they can get an idea of your writing. Yeah, because I do want people to be aware of you as a writer, as well as an artist, as a creative as well. Just give, I know you said that the book Red Ants is not available at the moment, but let's give them an overview about what the book is about, and that will give them a sense of who you are as a writer. Oh, Gbontwi seems to have frozen. Is that me, or is that both of us, or is that can I be heard? Quality control check. Quality control. Immediate feedback needed. Is that just me? Okay, it looks like Gbontwi has dropped off there. So just let me know if I can still be heard and seen. So you know, I know I'll proceed, and we'll get Gbontwi back on shortly. I'm just waiting for the thing to come true. For the confirmation to come true. Okay. Thank you very much, Kushti. I can be heard. And I see your question as well. Once you comes through, we'll ask him about that. Shout out to my chief. Yeah, Chief Fode Ajamu Mansare in the building. Over there in Freetown, Sierra Leone. Also bigging up the Queen, the Empress, the President, Sister Kenya, Malinke Mansare. Bigging up yourselves over there. These are the heads of the Black Star Action Network International, Kings and Queens. More on that later on this year. Yeah, more on that later on this year. Well, throughout the year, to be honest with you. So yeah, do stay tuned for all of that. Bigging up Auntie Kasheniwa in the building also. You don't know. I also Reparation Nation. Big up yourself. Oh, you mean? And we're just waiting for the re-arrival of our special guest Gbontwi Anyetei. And I was just asking him, he's an author, a noted writer, and one of his books, which is currently not quite in print at the moment, but will be soon. I was just asking him about the theme of that book, so brothers and sisters can get an awareness of him as a writer. And I am happy to announce that our brother Gbontwi Anyetei is going to be joining us throughout the year for our special podcast, Democracy Under Fire, or more specifically, Ghana, Democracy Under Fire. Because Ghana is engaging in a national election at the end of the year, we thought we would use the opportunity to delve in to the political and economic situation in Ghana and educate our people about it as a snapshot of the political and economic situation of our people around the world. All right, so do stay tuned for that. Gbontwi, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's not easy.
Yeah, no problem.
Easy.
We know how it goes, fam.
Yeah,
you know
I
I'm
can
saying.
hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we know how it goes. Doom so is a reality, yeah. That's it.
Real talk.
I was wondering if you heard my question, but I was asking you to just give the listeners,
before I
the
went
viewers,
offline, I saw
a taste.
somebody talking about Gaddafi and Magufuli as well. Exactly. Respect.
No, okay, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that question. Yeah.
No disrespect was intended by leaving off.
Mic check. Can you hear me, Gbontwi?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
Hello?
So what am I saying now? Yeah, I was asking you to give the viewers an idea of who you are as a writer, because I want them to be exposed to you as a writer as well, by giving them an idea of the theme of the book Red Ants.
Right, yeah, I think The Red Ants and the Noise is a book, as my brother mentioned at the top, that I consider as a genocide. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
You're cutting up. You're cutting up. Start again. Start your answer again. Oh man, inopportune moments right here. We're getting technical. It's been pretty stable for the whole show. You know what I'm saying? Okay, brothers and sisters, we'll persevere. We're gonna wrap up soon anyway. I just wanted you to get a taste of Gbontwi the writer. Yep, and people are suggesting, if you can hear me, Gbontwi, that you might just want to turn off your camera to reduce the bandwidth. Yeah, so we're closing soon. It's not going to be a big deal, so feel free to turn off your camera just so we can save some of the bandwidth and focus it on the audio, as that will be most important. All right, family. So we'll just wait for Gbontwi to get back through. All on. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna get into it, into a lot of these dynamics in a bit more detail. And the reason why this is important is because we have to, generally speaking, understand why our nations are in the conditions that, and we generally have some generic answers, but delving into it through the lens of an election allows us to get into more specific details. Sorry, Gbontwi, come again. Start again. In terms of the theme of the book.
Yeah, apologies for my internet snafus. Usually the internet gets better as it gets later in the evening, but today seems to be the exception. So yes, Red Ants and the Noise is a story, is the construction, a dramatic reconstruction of the genocide of the Ga people of Accra that took place in 1854. I'd been hearing about this story for many years, as I am of the Gadangbe ethnicity, and it is captured in more history books than a lot of Ghanaian history is, to be fair. Captured by the likes of Karl Reindorf, D.K. Henderson Corti, and a couple of other scholars. Even actually on the European side, the stories told about the bombardment of Accra. And so it's there, it's been captured. Like so much of our history, though, it's not publicly known of enough. So I took it upon myself to, as I said, make it a sort of a dramatic reconstruction, make it exciting in that kind of like fictionalized way, with kind of adding characters to the historical figures that are described by these historical scholars, and then using that to then promote the story. So I'm working on getting a podcast recorded of the book. So it would be multiple voices reading the multiple characters within the book that tells the story of the Accra resistance to colonialism in the middle of the 19th century, 1854 to be exact, and how all of that preceded the bombardments, which started on the Ghana New Year's Day. So you can imagine the revelry, the parties, the alcohol, and the British chose that day to start the bombardment, knowing that we would be ill-equipped to fight back. That book is out there. We've done a print run. I'm looking to resolve the publishing strifes this year.
All right, give thanks. We look forward to that. I'm more excited about the republishing of this book than I am about whoever's going to be Ghana's next president, to be honest. But luckily, it means I get to do a podcast with you for the whole. So we give thanks. You know what I'm saying? We give thanks for that. Our final question from the audience is from, well, it's not really a question. It's a statement or an inquiry. The Kushti says, I think the Ghana president also made a statement against the Sahel uprising, asking the West for their guidance. Is that the case, Gbontwi?
Yeah. Very much so. I actually had this in my notes. We didn't even get into this, but because of the podcast, I'm not panicking. I know that we're going to have time to really dig into all of this. Exactly. There was a meeting that's filmed meeting that took place with Akufo-Addo and an American official, where he speaks about that. He's again showing his treachery. You don't need to be Ghanaian to know that because these borders are all artificial in the extreme, Ghanaians have nothing to fear from Burkina Faso. Those they are our brothers and sisters. The ethnicities are shared across the borders for most of the people, several miles and tens of miles on either side of the border. The borders are meaningless. They cross it because their wives are on the other side, their farms are on the other side. And so Akufo-Addo to go and tell this American official that Ghanaians are afraid of Burkinabe really showed the fact that he's a traitor. And instead of being a straightforward traitor, as most of the political class are, he tries to don the cloak of being any kind of like a rebel or even Pan-Afrikanist in many of his speeches that are kind of like, especially those that kind of like appeal to the diaspora and so forth. But as all traitors, and especially a traitor with his limited intelligence, he really reveals himself very often. Sometimes in those very same conversations, I would say that beyond aid conversation, if you're talking about beyond aid, anybody who's an economist or not even an economist will know that if you're just talking about beyond aid the way he did with no plan, that you're not going to get beyond aid. Anybody that understands aid and how how it functions would need to see here a 5-point, 7-point, 10-point plan, how Akufo-Addo would be planning to deal with getting Ghana to a place where we're beyond aid. So for anybody that has any kind of who pays any kind of attention, Ghana going to the IMF as we did surprised nobody, because if you talk about beyond aid without a plan, then you haven't said anything.
Yeah. All right, Gbontwi, we're gonna come to a close. Just give you an opportunity to address anything that we haven't addressed in relation to this cancellation or related dynamics that you think is important for this conversation as we approach our close.
Like I said, this is a ideal template for outsiders and also Ghanaian insiders to understand our political landscape. The cancellation, as much, in fact, the fact that it turned into a bit of a farce is part of that. Here was Akufo-Addo so afraid of it and cancelling it, and it turned out to be what is arguably just a fellow capitalist African also sort of positioning for power. So all of that speaks to that. I think where it might be of particular interest is people from nations, and I can safely say like a Uganda, where the approach to suppressing political opponents is more aggressive, more violent. Ghana, whichever way you look at it, is definitely a good thing. That's not the way political opponents are handled. It's more a kind of suppression, sucking all the air out of the room of any kind of potential adversaries, which takes different forms. In this one, the form it took was cancelling the event, not letting people know on time that it was cancelled. This is going to exhaust people, add to people's fatigue. Next time they see such an event, will they go because will it be cancelled again? This is kind of like a blow. This is a very Fanon approach to suppressing the ambitions and just the general feel-good feeling of Africans where it comes to optimism that we have. So yeah, in a lot of ways, and you'll see more evidence of that as our podcast gets going, talking about ways that Ghanaians can anticipate any real objections to the mainstream political parties, which pretend to be at odds but are really working together, how they operate.
Thank you for that, Gbontwi. I'm gonna take it. This is coming through very late, but because it is who it is, I'm gonna take it very quickly. Empress Kushti.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I wasn't
No
sure.
problem. It's all right.
I wasn't sure I was going to be able to type it in time. But it's a very quick question. Just listening on to what the brothers said there and your back and forths, it might be a combination of both, but does he think the cancellation was more of the fear of a strong, unapologetic Pan-African movement, or potential of a movement that could have happened there, and just the fear of that and what it could gather with people coming together? Or do you think it was mainly the fact that they knew who the organizer was as the individual that you described and his aspirations in politics, and it was just strategically a politic kind of move?
No, like you said, it's definitely a bit of both. I would think it was more of the former, because these people, as much as I don't respect their intelligence or their vision, our political forces, they've studied history of politics, and they know that there's a long line of you could call it unintended consequences of events that might not be a danger in of themselves, but because of the sort of gathering of people, it could become much more than that. An example of that would be what took place near that very site in 1948. I know we're closing up, so let me try and paraphrase the story as much as possible. Some soldiers, some Ghanaian soldiers, they would have been Gold Coast soldiers at the time. This is 3 years, after World War II. They had served Britain, and they hadn't gotten their pensions promised to them by the British. So these soldiers basically marched on Christiansborg, the seat of power, the British seat of power as it was then, the colonizers, not far from where Independence Square is now, part of the significance of the area. And so these are men who, depending on how you analyze revolution, they're not revolutionaries. They had fought for, as it was then, the king, and they simply wanted their pensions to be paid to them by the royal crown that hadn't been paid to them since the close of the war. They tried to give their petition. They are shot by a Scottish soldier, especially a Scottish policeman, I should say, Colin Emery, and the shooting of 3 of them. A couple of them are great uncles of mine. Sparked the beginning of a big riot in Accra, and that, for many people, was the first sign that they knew that the Gold Coast wasn't the model colony that the British had been pretending it was in all their various newsreels. And then secondly, it also sparked the rise of Nkrumah, because the British, in one of their many mistakes they made around fighting independence in Ghana, felt that by blaming Nkrumah and other Gold Coast subjects had left the country, they could make the push for independence an outside of Ghana influence situation, i.e. the people of Gold Coast. Forgive me why I go back and forth the Gold Coast and Ghana thing in this particular story, because it was Gold Coast at the time. At their time, their thinking was that, yes, by telling the world, and to that degree, people of the Gold Coast, that you don't want independence. It's some troublemakers that have gone abroad that want this independence. They're being uppity, they're being all these other things. But then, of course, in the end, that just served to bring Nkrumah to a wider audience, and then the rest, as they say, is history. So yes, that would be part of their fears, that, okay, the speakers there are not, system attackers per se. The one who
you're cracking up again,
is also not going to be against our. Oh, sorry, but hopefully you got the gist of the story I was telling. Yeah, but it would be a very real fear that they would have.
Go ahead. Gbontwi, there's actually a film that I watched.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Just to let you know, bro, I could hear him fine. I could hear him fine. So.
Okay, if you can hear him fine, it might be me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. It might have been me then. No problem. There's a film called 28th, The Crossroads, which was done by Parable Studios. I had the pleasure of watching
the animation, right?
When I was in Ghana, but it's about the events that you're talking about, the shooting of the 3 soldiers. So yeah, just to say that I don't think you can watch the entire thing online, but there's a trailer. If you search Parable Studios, anybody who's interested, the film is called the 28th, The Crossroads. Yeah. You can
is that animation?
It's animation.
Yeah, animation.
Yeah, it's an animation, yeah. About exactly what Gbontwi's just talking about. I'm gonna take one more question from Temi, if you don't mind, Gbontwi. And she's asked. Let me see. Oh, I've lost the question. Hold on. There we go. Temi is asking. gotkushTV, what are the prospects with Ghanaian leadership in terms of the coming elections? Anyone who is actually promising? Feel free to again give a short answer.
Yeah, short answer is
in the podcast.
Unfortunately, no one who is actually promising. At organizer level, Pan-Afrikanist level, there is some energy being expended to create a coalition of political figures from the to create a genuine third force in Ghana. So that is in process. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to happen. But yeah, I always try to be optimistic. But as far as the stated candidates now, as of this date, which is the 11th of January, no, there is no one promising. The one who is the favorite, I would argue, simply because he hasn't been in power for the last 8 years, but has been in power previously and showed no such potential, no such interest for African interests, no such for African progress. Looks like he's the favorite and will possibly win because of it's been a cycle like that since Ghana became a democracy, inverted commas, where each of the two parties enjoy 8 years of looting, stealing, and then give way for the other to continue and blame the first 3-4 years of inactivity and inertia on the misbehavior and mistakes of the previous one. It's a really vicious game that is destroying the potential of this beautiful corner of the beautiful continent that we're on. But yeah, please be watching this space. Please be doing your research. There's a lot of this you can find out for yourselves. I'm going to really enjoy talking about this more with you in our upcoming podcast.
All right, family. All right. We have been exploring why was the convention cancelled with noted Pan-African organizer and writer Gbontwi Anyetei. We have announced that we will be engaging in a regular podcast monthly to begin with, and we probably will increase the frequency approaching closer to the election itself. So do stay tuned. But the podcast is entitled Ghana, Democracy Under Fire. Yes, indeed, family. And we're not going to be just exploring the campaigns themselves, who said what, on the campaign trail. And we're going to actually be exploring Ghana politics from a historical and a contemporary point of view, and what gets us to this point. What context is this election taking place in? What were the policies of Nana Akufo-Addo over the last 8 years? Yeah, why did he sell the port to the French billionaire? When he made the announcement about keeping Ghana's cocoa, in Ghana, I think it was the year before last, yeah? What fruits did that bear in terms of Ghana's cocoa production and other cocoa products? Yeah, what came out of that particular announcement? I heard that Nana Akufo-Addo made education free in Ghana. Is that the case? And what was produced from the free education? We're gonna be delving into these questions, but what is the situation with Ghana's gold at the moment? I heard that Nana Akufo-Addo has basically sold off the gold to the European Union. What is going on as far as Ghana's gold in this dispensation of time? All of those questions and more we will be exploring in Ghana, Democracy Under Fire. Do stay tuned for more announcements, brothers and sisters. And until such time, I say to you, Tendai Mwadi, be thankful unto the motherfucking creative life force of the universe. Kudzai Mudzimu Mukuru, give praises unto our great ancestors, because our great ancestors are worthy. Yes, indeed, worthy to be praised. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodiye, African power and African liberation for all African people. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.